Got some new upgrades from EGW. They sent me their magwell here. New slide stop stainless steel. I got a keyed reverse plug, as well as the EGW parts I already had in this gun. See how she does. Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical. This is the Springfield Prodigy. We've showed this gun on this channel quite a bit. Of all the pistols that I own, this is my favorite one to shoot. One thing that I think that a lot of people have realized about the Springfield Prodigy, and now ever since all these other budget 2011s have come out, is that the 2011 is the perfect thing to upgrade and customize, and that a Springfield Prodigy is a great platform to turn into a really good pistol. And I think it's something that a lot of the bigger gun channels miss the point on, because they do a review on a stock Prodigy or stock any pistol, and that's it. But you can really make a Prodigy into something amazing. My favorite parts to use are EGW or Evolution Gunworks. I always love coming out to shoot the Prodigy, especially on a beautiful day like this. Middle of winter, but not even wearing a coat. So this Prodigy already had some EGW parts in it from quite a while back. So it already had the EGW ignition kit, and I had installed the EGW thumb safeties here a little while ago as well. But kind of a funny story how I came into some more EGW parts. EGW did send these parts to me. The reason why it's a funny story is because I reached out to them because they sent me the thumb safeties a while back, and I absolutely love them. Well, I got the 2311 Match X from EAA, the budget staccato XC that we have at home. And so I wanted to do a full upgrade on that gun with EGW parts, with the ignition kit, all that stuff. Same thing I did to this Prodigy, because it really made a big difference and made it into a much better gun. Well, I got those parts. And I talked to Holosun Arms about doing a multicam Cerakote job on that pistol. And they said, sure, but we want to do even more than that. Send me your gun, send me your parts, and I'm going to tune it up. So I sent all that stuff to Holosun Arms. Well, it hasn't made it there yet. FedEx delivered it to a different gun shop in a different state. Holosun Arms is in North Carolina. And my 2311 Match X ended up in Kansas. So right now I'm working on trying to get it from Kansas to where it's supposed to go, so that I can hopefully eventually get it back with all customized up. But the whole thing is, when EGW decided to send me those parts, they gave me a budget to pick parts off their site. Well, the ignition kit for the 2311 didn't fully fill out that budget. So I got to get some new Prodigy parts. I got the EGW Prodigy magwell, which is really nice and really easy to install. I got their slide stop, slide release lever here, which I've been planning to get anyway. I like the silver and black look here, and the stainless steel matches the thumb safeties and the barrel and the trigger and the hammer and everything else. I did decide to go with black for the magwell because, I don't know, too much silver. But then I also got a keyed reverse plug, which, you know, aesthetics really only, as far as, you know, form or function, but it does make the front of the gun look a lot cleaner, and I like it. So we're going to talk about what these upgrades do for this pistol today, and is it worth it for you? This video is sponsored by Venice AI. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Venice AI yet, but it's pretty cool. AI, artificial intelligence, it is like the hot new thing the last couple of years. Everybody's heard of ChatGPT, DeepSeek. Well, DeepSeek's software is open source. So Venice AI basically used that, but what they did is they made it private and permissionless. The thing is DeepSeek, yeah, you can use its incredible features, to do all of the things that AI can do for you. But all of your information gets stored on Chinese servers and of course can also be censored by the Chinese. Well, Venice AI uses that same software, but it is private. You don't have to worry about any of your private information getting, stolen by the Chinese, which is pretty sweet. ChatGPT is the other big one that everybody seems to really be using a lot for, well, as a tool to do all kinds of incredible things. But one of the guys on the board of ChatGPT was also on the board of the NSA, which we all know what they do. They spy on us. Well, Venice AI, you don't have to worry about that either. So check out Venice AI using my link, first link in the description down below. That link is venice.ai/sawtooth tactical. And in fact, you can get 20% off a pro plan using code Sawtooth Tactical. So check it out. If you want to use all of the powerful things that AI can give you, but privately and securely and encrypted, use my link. Again, venice.ai/Sawtooth Tactical, 20% off with code Sawtooth Tactical. So before I talk about the 3 new upgrades, I want to talk about the original EGW stuff I put in this gun because it really changed the way this gun felt, the way it handled, and the way it shot, along with respringing the gun. That was a big part of it as well. So I did the EGW ignition kit. In fact, I didn't do it. Skip's Guns did it for me because when I first got this, to be quite honest, I wasn't 100% confident in my abilities to fit and tune a 2011. I no longer feel that way. I've taken this gun all the way apart. I've taken the 2311 apart. I understand how a 2011 works, but at the time, I wanted somebody that was a professional to do it, and he did an amazing job. Now, the EGW ignition kit is pretty much a drop-in parts kit, but 2011s are hand-fit. Now, a stock Prodigy isn't a hand-fit gun, but in order for everything to work just right, to be reliable, and to be perfect and smooth the way you want a 2011 to be, I mean, there are certain little things that you can do. And Skip's Guns, besides installing the EGW kit, tuned my Atlas trigger here, flat, medium, silver trigger, to 2.4 pounds, and put in an 8-pound recoil spring and shock buff, as well as doing a little bit of a bevel on the bottom of the slide where it rides over the disconnector, so there's no disconnector hang up anymore. And those things, when the gun came back, it just felt so much better. The lighter recoil spring makes for a lighter recoiling gun. It also has a 17-pound mainspring now. Between the 8-pound recoil spring, 17-pound mainspring, the gun shoots totally differently. And the stock Prodigy already shot really well. But with those springs changed, it really just recoils less. You have less muzzle rise, and it comes back onto target perfectly. Now, after that, I should have had him do the safeties, but I had the stock safeties on there. That's the only real complaint I've ever had about this gun. The stock safety was squishy. When you put it in fire, it kind of still squished down, and the right side safety would walk out occasionally. Never came all the way out, but it would just kind of start coming out the more I used it. So that's when I originally reached out to EGW, and they sent me these thumb safeties. Now, the thumb safeties are a part that you do have to fit, but it was not difficult. I basically took the stock safeties out, and I looked at the angle that was filed on my stock safety. I got a little file from the hardware store, and I did the same work on this one, doing just a little bit at a time. Put it back in, feel it, a little more, put it back in, feel it. You can always take off more metal, but you can't add more back. So you want to do something when you're fitting a part, like the safety on a 2011, do a little bit at a time. You want to get that perfect sear engagement to where it feels perfect and crisp and tactile, but not squishy, and make sure that it still works, that when it's on safe, the gun doesn't fire, and when it's on fire, that it does. But I was able to do that myself very easily. And so my plan with the 2311 was to install all those parts myself. I feel very confident doing it now, having taken this apart. I understand how the whole thing works now, and I don't think it's the most difficult thing in the world. But if a professional wants to do it for me for free on the channel, hey, I'm all about it. So that's how this gun sat for a long time, until just recently when EGW let me get some more parts. And since, like I said, the parts for the 2311 didn't fill out the whole budget they gave me, I was able to get some new Prodigy parts as well. Checkmate mags do work with the EGW mag well. See how they run. Looks like they work. Now the 3 new parts that I just got, they don't affect the function of the gun quite as much as some of the parts that I'd already gotten before. You know, the keyed reverse plug, that is mostly for aesthetics, but it does just clean up the front of the gun. There's no gap between the plug here and the barrel, or the guide rod and the barrel, which is sweet. I do want to get a one-piece guide rod or a toolless guide rod, but they were out of stock when I was ordering parts. So I do still have the original 2-piece guide rod in here. I have no issues with that, especially when using the gun. It's just kind of a pain in the ass when you go to take it down to clean the thing, but not that big of a deal to me. Now, the other parts do actually give you function and form. So the EGW slide stop lever, for one, the stainless steel matches the other parts, the other aftermarket parts that I already installed, and just kind of completes the black and silver aesthetic, which I think looks really, really good. But also, it's a bigger lever, easier to hit, and that's a big complaint that a lot of people have when they go from Glocks and other striker-fired pistols into the world of 2011s, is that you can't really hit that slide release with your, firing hand thumb like you can on a lot of modern pistols. The 1911 design, that's just how it's designed. Now, there are extended ones that'll come back over your grip module there. Personally, I've been shooting these guns for a long time now. I just, when I'm at slide lock and I go do a reload, I hit it with my support hand thumb, and that's not a problem for me. Well, this lever is quite a bit bigger and wider than the original one, and it's got checkering, well, not checkering, but lines, milled into it, and it's just very solid when you hit it with your thumb. It's a lot more obvious, a lot harder to miss when you are, putting your gun back in battery after a reload. So form and function, it looks great, and it actually does work better. And that was a totally drop-in part, as was the keyed reverse plug. I had to do 0 fitting whatsoever on either of those, which is kind of sweet. Reverse plug went right in, this went right in, no issues whatsoever. Now the magwell, you have a lot of options when it comes to magwells for the Prodigy, but EGW makes one that, again, is a drop-in part, and I think that that's pretty sweet. 20 round checkmate mag. I do want to mention a little tip when it comes to installing a magwell on your Prodigy, because I learned my lesson the hard way. Now, was it that big of a deal? No. But you have a pin right here that goes through your mainspring housing in the back of your grip module. Well, when you put one of these magwells on, you get a bigger pin with it that holds those two things together, as well as the magwell on your pistol. The magwell itself, it's kind of open in the front, it slides onto your grip module from the back. Well, me being a total dumbass and not like looking up the correct way to install it, just thinking, I know what I'm doing, I always know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing. What I did is I punched out the original pin first, and of course, your mainspring housing is under pressure from your strut here, all these internal parts, and so that comes out, and then my sear spring comes out, and basically the whole internal guts of the gun came out of the gun, and my gun was now apart. Well, it took me a couple of tries to put everything back in correctly, and I was getting hammer follow at one point, or my safeties wouldn't work, and eventually I got it all put back together correctly. But it was kind of a funny learning experience, and what I realized is that the correct way to do it is to just leave the original pin in there, put the grip module on over it, and slide the new bigger pin in. It'll push the original pin out like a slave pin, and then you're good to go. And if you don't want to mess with your sear spring and your mainspring housing and your grip safety there and all this stuff that'll fall right out of your gun once the mainspring housing isn't solidly in place, well, then do it that way. Do not remove the original pin before you go to install your mag well. Just slide this thing on and push the pin through and push the original pin out as you go. It'll make your life much easier if you don't understand how all of these parts go together and interact with each other. Now, it is pretty logical once you look at it when you're trying to put it back together. Like I said, it took me a couple of tries. I kept getting my sear spring not sitting right on the sear. So that's why I was getting hammer follow and stuff. Once I got it in right, no issue whatsoever. But the magwell itself is, again, function and form. So I actually do think that it makes the gun look better. I used to think that the magwells, giant magwells that everyone puts on 2011s just look stupid. And I still kind of think so. I understand the point of them from a competition standpoint, very fast reloads, totally. The more I've gotten into 2011s, I don't know, they've kind of grown on me, and I really like the way this one looks. I did go with black instead of silver on that, because I didn't really want it to be super obvious. But besides just making reloads easier, and it does, like, dude, it is hard to miss a reload with this, with this magwell, and then I miss. But besides that, it also helps your grip. Because of where that magwell sits, it actually pushes both of your hands higher up into the grip automatically, which just gives you more of a better, perfect, tight grip on the gun. You want a high grip on your pistol to control recoil, and you want that grip to be tight. Like, you want this to be, you know, like pushing the meat of your hand, and you want this hand tight in up here as well. And having this magwell helps you do that. I only got a few rounds left. Figure we shoot from a little farther back. Like I said, a few rounds. Now, the best thing about getting new EGW parts for the Prodigy is it got me out to the range shooting the Prodigy again. I haven't shot this gun in a little while because I've had other new things to test and make videos about. But, you know, new parts, had to go out and test the gun with them, make sure everything still ran perfectly, especially after I had to mess with all the internals there. And so I had to take it out to the range earlier today, and it just reminded me how much I love this pistol. The Prodigy can be a really amazing gun. I think it gets a bad rap because it was the first budget 2011 to hit the market, and it kind of had a rough start. Springfield put out a lot of guns that were not reliable, but they also put out a lot of guns that were totally fine. But a lot of people had issues, and those issues became very public and very apparent through a lot of YouTube videos and posts online, and a lot of people had to send their pistols back to Springfield. I never had any of those problems with mine. Mine ran perfectly from day one, totally in its stock configuration, and I put the first 1,000 rounds through this pistol bone stock, except for adding a light and an optic. It wasn't until after I'd put the first 1,000 rounds in it that I finally started doing some upgrades, some customization. The EGW ignition kit, the Atlas trigger, the lighter springs, all of that stuff. And I think that that was the way to go because I got a really good feel for this gun in its stock configuration. But once I added all these upgraded parts to it, I could really tell what a big difference the parts really made. Between the ignition kit and the Atlas trigger, giving me a very crisp 2-pound trigger pull with an extremely fast reset, and the lighter recoil spring and mainspring, the gun shoots flatter, it shoots faster, and it's more accurate because you have less of a chance to pull your sights off target with such a light, crisp trigger pull. So those parts really did make this into a much better gun, and then slowly I've made it into a better and better gun just by doing simple things. Adding the EGW safety made the one part of the gun that bugged me, it made it better. You know, that is perfect and crisp now. I mean, you can hear it. That's how a safety should sound, and it feels perfect. And the proper way to shoot a 2011 is with your thumb over that safety in the firing position. Whenever I hear people talk about a 1911 or a 2011 safety accidentally going into safe during a string of fire, it's because they're not doing it properly. The proper way to shoot one of these guns is with your thumb over that safety, but the original factory safety was squishy when I did that. So changing out that safety actually did make a really big difference when it came to shooting the gun and just knowing that it's in safe or fire. It is very audible, tactile, clicky, feels perfect. And then now just with the mag wells, making reloads much easier and making my grip better. With the new slide release just being easier to hit with my support hand thumb, and then just looking better with the keyed reverse plug. All of these parts do have benefits in my opinion. For one thing, I think that they look really good, but they make an otherwise budget 2011, and I know a $1,300 gun budget, well, in the world of 2011s it is. This was the first cheap 2011 really to come out, and now there's a whole slew of them to hit the market. But the best thing about these cheap 2011s is that you can make them really, really good by just changing out a few parts. And so now that I've made this Prodigy really, really good, and my plan was to actually get V8 ports in it, and I might still do that at some point. Maybe I'll send it to DSC Gunworks or one of these other companies that does such things. I think David over there at DSC invented the V8 ports, so I'd like to support him for that. But now that I got the 2311, if I ever actually get it back, well, now I have a comped 2011 as well. And the whole point of that gun, the whole reason that I felt comfortable buying another budget 2011 is because of my experience using EGW parts in my Prodigy and how much better it made this gun. I was confident that I could buy that gun and make it that much better by doing basically the same thing. And that gun, just like the Prodigy, was already pretty good right off the get-go. Did have a few little reliability issues that the Prodigy didn't have, but mainly it was due to me trying to run Prodigy mags in it, so not that big a deal, I think. I already have put lighter springs in it, the same 8-pound recoil spring and buffer like I'm using in this Prodigy here, and that already reduced the recoil on that 2311. Hopefully FedEx will find my gun, get it to the right place, and when it comes back, it should have an aluminum grip module, EGW internals, and a multicam Cerakote job, and it should be a fantastic 2011 as well. And, you know, one that's not costing $5,000, but it should perform pretty close to those guns that do. I've shot a lot of very nice, much more expensive 2011s in the last year, and this Prodigy with these upgrades, I hate to say it, but it shoots pretty much as good as any of them. So if you have a Springfield Prodigy, go on EGW's website, check it out. They have a thing where you can build your own ignition kit. You get to pick your parts. It's a hammer, sear, disconnector, sear spring, main spring. You put your ignition kit together, and you know, you can kind of pick those parts. They've got some options, and you know, get that thing coming. It's not that expensive, and you can make your Prodigy really sweet. And I believe in you when it comes to installing those parts yourself. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, there's a lot of guys out there that, you know, specialize in this now. You can send it to Skip's Guns, DSC, Cosent Arms. You know, I've dealt with Skips and Cosent Arms now, and I have no complaints about either one of them. Really happy with Skip's Guns work. And, you know, I haven't gotten my gun back from Cosent yet, but I've been talking to the guy on the phone. Great guy. and I'm really looking forward to that. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a like. Make sure you let me know in the comments, do you have a Prodigy? Have you done the EGW kit? What kind of trigger do you have in yours? What upgrades have you done? And let me know how you feel about your gun after those upgrades, because I know that this might seem like a custom Prodigy now, but these are pretty much the same upgrades that almost everyone is doing to their Prodigies. And there's a reason for that. It definitely makes a big difference. Make sure you subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical, and from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.